Welcome to Conversations on Groong. On Friday, June 13th, Israel launched a massive military operation against Iran, dubbed Operation Rising Lion. The attacks involved airstrikes and suicide drones, many of them reportedly guided by operatives already inside Iran. Shocking. Targets included nuclear enrichment facilities, military installations, and the assassination of top Iranian military commanders and nuclear scientists. Now, this marks a serious escalation in the shadow war between Iran and Israel, with potential consequences far beyond the region. To help us understand what this means for the Middle East and for the broader international order, we will soon be joined by Fyodor Lukyanov, editor-in-chief of Russia and Global Affairs, and one of the leading voices in Russian foreign policy analysis.
A quick note to our listeners before we begin, before Mr. Lukyanov joins us. If you value the work that we do and want to support it, visit podcasts.groong.org/donate. You'll find links to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, and every contribution helps us keep the show going. And if supporting us financially isn't an option, you can still help us by liking, sharing, and commenting. That kind of support also goes a long way. Thanks for being with us. Now let's go to the show.
Mr. Lukyanov, welcome back to the Groong podcast.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me again.
Glad to have you on board. Yeah. Mr. Lukyanov, I was reviewing our previous conversation, which was back in February, and one question we didn't have an answer for was whether Trump was going to attend the Victory Day parade in Moscow. Well, sad to say that didn't happen.
It didn't happen, and actually, I don't believe that anybody expected that to happen. Anyway, the level of, how to say it, polite gestures around this anniversary, and even later on, recently, just 2 days ago, Putin congratulated Trump to his birthday, and that was exactly the day of the parade in DC, and they all again reminded each other the role Russia and the United States played during the Second World War. So Trump understands that this topic, this issue is, so to say, useful in conversations with Russians.
Yeah. We were hoping to instigate peace, but didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen.
Well, let's talk about, unfortunately, more serious issues. Mr. Lukyanov, Israel says that its assault on Iran using, multi-dimensional methods, fighter jets, and so forth, is just the beginning and could last for weeks, if not more. The stated goal to neutralize or delay, at least, what Israel claims is Iran's nuclear ambitions. And back in January, Iran and Russia signed a comprehensive strategic partnership, as has been much talked about. It's not a formal military alliance, but it's hard to believe Moscow is indifferent to a major attack on one of its closest partners. And in fact, I believe after the attack, Putin and Trump had a phone conversation, and according to Trump's tweet or Truth on Truth Social, Putin relayed the importance of stopping the Israeli aggression against Iran, and according to Trump, he said, "Well, you should stop the aggression in Ukraine." If I'm paraphrasing, but I think I got the spirit of that conversation, or at least how Trump explains it. What is the view from Moscow on the Israeli attacks on against Iran?
Yeah, first of all, yes, you're absolutely right. Moscow cannot remain indifferent. Iran is not an ally, as you rightly mentioned, but cooperation between Russia and Iran got much closer in the recent couple of years. And based on the similarity of situations, Iran has been hit by sanctions, severe sanctions since 1970s. Russia now have surpassed Iran in the scale, in the amount of sanctions introduced against Moscow, but we are more or less on the same page with attempts of unfriendly countries, as it's officially called here, to isolate and to blockade our countries. Yes, the treaty, which has been signed and just recently ratified by parliaments, and I think it was signed today, just today on Sunday, by the chairman, the speaker of the Iranian parliament, is about cooperation, but is not about military assistance. So the formula in this document is pretty accurate, and countries do not oblige to defend the other part, the partner, in case of military aggression, but there is an obligation not to side with any aggressor, be it against Russia or against Iran. You know, the feeling, what people here feel about what is happening, those feelings are very mixed. Because on the one hand, yes, indeed, the level of, how to say, brutality demonstrated by Israel is, how to say, impressive even for Russians. We used to operate pretty severe in some cases, but compared to Israel, it's nothing. That's number one, point number one. And frankly, there are people here, I wouldn't say there are many of them, and it's certainly not officials, but there are people here who say that, look at Israel, we need to do the same against Ukraine. We need to behave in the same way. But yeah, and there are, of course, sympathies with Iran, not because Iran is a partner state, but also because Iran is now a victim of such a clear aggression. At the same time, you know, looking at what is happening, many people here, including specialists, are pretty surprised by the level of unpreparedness of Iran, because it was the hypothetical operation has been discussed since quite a while, and many people expected something to come. I spoke to some specialists both here in Russia and in Israel in recent months, and many people said that something is coming. It seems that Iran didn't believe that, and it seems that Iran was very badly coordinated, and the very fact that Israel managed to eliminate almost the whole military leadership in one wave of strikes, that's of course not a good sign, especially given the fact that Israel is operating exactly in the way as it did against Hezbollah or Hamas, and it had to be at least learned by other enemies and opponents of Israel. So it looks like Iran is in a pretty bad situation now. About diplomacy, yes, I think that Putin is behind the scene, is trying to communicate with several leaders, including Iran, including US, including Israel. But to be very frank, I'm afraid in this particular situation, as we see it now, there is no ground for negotiations at all, at least for a while. Israel is very much committed to at least weaken Iran to the point when Iran is totally unable to harm, to deliver any harm to Israel. And I'm afraid that the ambitions of Mr. Netanyahu will grow quite geometrically. And he is starting to talk about regime change, about to help Iranian people to be liberated from this corrupted ayatollahs and so on. And I'm afraid that it will be, the final goal will be just this, just to destroy Iranian statehood as it did exist for previous couple of decades.
Mr. Lukyanov, it's interesting that you mentioned about Netanyahu's ambitions. Some say that was the plan all along, regime change. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And also, beyond Israel and Iran, this attack, at least it will have the effect of weakening Eurasian integration. If Iran is disintegrated or regime change happens, It seems to be that Iran is a vital link between Russia and China. Do you think that this is also this attack also had broader geopolitical goals? And can the Russian response go further than just diplomacy at this point? I think that many are criticizing Russian response to be too diplomatic.
Yeah, I know that many people in Iran are unhappy with the lack, what they see as lack of Russian commitment. As far as the Eurasian integration is concerned, yes and no. Of course, if Iran will be severely weakened or even destroyed in the current form, that will deliver a certain blow to several initiatives taken on the Eurasian space. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where Iran is member of, BRICS, Iran has joined BRICS last year, and so on. At the same time, I don't think you mentioned Iran as a link between Russia and China. No, I wouldn't agree with that. Iran is an important partner for both countries, but Russia and China do not need any links between themselves. So Iran is an important place and is a very important country and potentially very strong country. But Eurasian process was rather about Central Asia, China, Russia. And in this regard, I think it will not be harmed massively. As far as Russian image is concerned, in Iran, people used to be suspicious from the beginning that Russia was inclined to improve ties with Iran because of conflict with the West. And some people told, even I had some such conversations, that Iranians said, yes, we know the moment when Americans will invite you to discussion, you will abandon us. I don't think it is that terrible. It will not happen, but Russia will not get involved in this militarily because actually Russian interest in the region is pretty diversified. Iran has been an important partner in Syria, but Syrian case is dismissed, doesn't exist anymore in the previous form. And in general, we see such profound moves, changes in the whole area that unfortunately I'm afraid that it will be impossible to preserve what we had before. And now this is much more important to try to understand what kind of configuration might emerge there in maybe months or a couple of years to come.
Yeah, and we're recording this on Sunday, June 15th, the date when the nuclear talks were supposed to resume in Oman. But we know what happened, and the talks are now called off. Now, the timing of the attacks raises serious questions about the U.S. Trump publicly at least appeared to gloat that his team knew about the operation in advance. According to Axios, some sources say that Trump even gave Israel the green light for this attack. And, there's this report in 2009, Brookings report, Which Path to Persia, which seems to be almost like a prescription of what to do with Iran, especially like chapter 5 of that report, which says, leave it to Bibi, implying to goad Iran into negotiations, but then let Netanyahu eventually attack Iran because of the negotiations would be conducted in bad faith, and then the attack would commence. So do you believe that Israel indeed sabotaged the US-Iran nuclear talks, or is it also in the US interest to at least some part of the US deep state what exactly happened right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We don't know, of course. the interest of the US is not clear, so it's not holistic, so it's quite diversified. When it comes to Trump personally and his, so to say, inner circle, the coalition of those who are closest to Trump and who support America First agenda, I don't believe it is to any extent in their interest, because Trump and the United States risk to get involved in another very complicated, bloody, and long-term, long-lasting war in the Middle East. So even if Iran will be easily or difficultly destroyed by Israel, the scale of changes which it will generate might create much bigger seismic effect. And in this regard, the whole incentive of Trump to end endless wars and to be back to American workers' interest might be simply derailed. In this regard, I don't believe that Trump played this role which you indicated, that he just helped Netanyahu and Israel to distort Iranian attention. But on the other hand, of course, we know that another very important part of Trump and coalition are those who are staunchly pro-Israel, and those evangelicals in the United States who, for their reasons, are big friends of Israel. And his policy until now has been pretty clear, very much supportive to Israel. So in this regard, I think he is a little bit distracted at this point. If it will end up soon, if Israel will manage to really achieve important goals, then Trump might present it as another success, as he used to do. But if not, I don't know what will happen. And of course, Trump suffers a serious setback on many fronts, actually, at this point. We see many of his election statements are still work in progress, to put it very mildly. So at the end of the day, I agree with those from Trumpian entourage, and partly I spoke with these people just days ago at a meeting in Istanbul. They are very unhappy about this because they believe that this America First agenda will not survive in case outside forces, this time Israel, maybe next time somebody else, next time Europe, probably in the Ukrainian case, will manage to get America involved in such conflicts.
Yeah, we'd definitely love to discuss Istanbul a little bit more in detail, but I just want to mention that ever since Trump's election and the dialogue that he opened with Putin, Russian media and politicians spoke positively about Trump. And in fact, a recent Levada poll shows that Russians no longer see the U.S. as the enemy, most Russians at least. Given what just happened, maybe the answer you already said the answer, but I'd like to ask it again. Given what just happened, can Russia really trust Trump to negotiate in good faith, especially when much of Washington, as you said, including many in his own party, still treat Russia as the enemy?
First of all, we have a very special leader in Russia. And when it comes to trust, I don't think that's the notion which can be easily applied to him. His professional background and his experience as a Russian president, his experience in negotiations with the West, starting from 2000 when he came, all those factors they rather make him suspicious and not very much trustful to any counterparts. Having said that, I think that in case of Trump, he managed to establish pretty strong connection to him. Strong connection doesn't mean full trust, but it means that they understand each other, more or less. At least, I don't know what about Trump. He's a pretty special guy with other skills. But in case of Putin, I think he is more or less sure that he understands Trump correctly. He not just what he says, but what he means, how he behaves, the logic of his behavior. To some extent, he understands him better than many many Americans, and that means that what you ask about, whether this Iranian unfortunate experience might undermine Putin's perception of Trump. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, and I think that at the end of the day, this is a very much personal, eye to eye, eyes to eyes, and this relationship might go wrong, but it will be not because any of leaders will try to cheat each other. It will because they finally will understand that limits are pretty strict on maneuvering for both sides, and there is no much place for common decision. We are not yet there. But when it comes to trust, I would dare to say that there is a higher degree of trust between those guys than usually between Putin and other leaders.
Mr. Lukyanov, I wanted to drill a little bit deeper in something you said earlier when you said that Russia would not get militarily involved in this situation between Iran and Israel. Because as you know, back in January, there was a strategic partnership that was signed between Iran and Russia. And it became very clear that it was not a military alliance. It, of course, included serious military and technical cooperation. But the question that's in my mind is, if Israel is going to succeed in weakening or even dismantling Iran, what would that mean for Russian strategy on its southern flanks? How far is Moscow willing to go militarily, politically, diplomatically to support Iran and push back against this kind of international violence?
You know, Russia has one priority now, and I'm afraid for quite a while ahead of us. And this priority is called Ukraine. As long as Ukrainian conflict continues, as long as Russian army is fighting very heavy battles to extend control, and Russian economy is working to support those moves, frankly, I don't believe that any of other issues in international affairs might become equally important. More than that, resources of Russia, I would not say that Russia is overstretched, not yet at least. But there is not an abundance of capacities which can be directed to other issues beyond Ukraine. So in this regard, what Russia can do and would be ready to do to support Iran, certainly not military actions, it's out of question. Technical and military assistance in some form, I think yes, as Iran did at earlier stages of Ukrainian war. Diplomacy which might be requested by Iran in case situation will get worse for them, or maybe even get better, but Iran will would like to stop the military operation to try to stabilize situation. In this regard, I think Russia is better situated than anybody else because Putin has a good relationship with the Iranian leaders, both of them, and with Netanyahu, it's still very workable relationship. They disagree almost on everything, but since quite a long time, they understand each other very well with Netanyahu. And that means that I cannot exclude that it might be requested pretty soon. In case this war will become an attrition war, the prolonged attrition war to try to undermine Iran, I think Russia might be willing to support Iran a little bit more in terms of economic support and technical military support. Again, not a direct military involvement.
So before the Iran-Russia treaty was made public, many speculated it might include a clear military alliance. And just yesterday, Alexander Dugin made a bombshell claim on his Telegram channel that Russia offered exactly that. But Tehran backed off, hoping to reach some kind of a deal with the West instead. That's what he said. How much truth is there to this? And could the agreement have gone further militarily? And was it Iran that chose to hold back?
Professor Dugin knows probably more than me. Frankly, I have no information about the preparation of this treaty, but based on how I feel and how I understand Russian position and Iranian position, I doubt very much that something like this could be included in the earlier draft. Russia and Iran, as we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, two countries with a lot of different relationships, countries very interested in each other, but never before, during different periods of our relationship, including periods when Iran was under big pressure or Russia was under big pressure, never before we could get this feeling that it might be that close that a military alliance might be reached. Even in Syria, when Russia and Iran fought side by side, actually, to support Assad regime as long as it did exist, but especially the first stage when it was the decisive period after 2015. But interests never coincided. Russia had the one setup of priorities and goals in Syria, Iran completely different ones. And I don't think that our relationship ever reached the point when sides would conclude that they might need this kind of close binding military alliance. And Professor Dugin is right by saying that Iran has always hoped to diplomatically outplay the West. And it was once, it happened once, so to say, the so-called nuclear deal conducted by Obama administration was actually a big success, and it was a big success for Iranian diplomacy as well. And Russia was, by the way, extremely helpful and instrumental in facilitating that agreement. I think that Iran hoped to repeat the same trick again, especially given the fact that Biden administration seemed to be totally disinterested, but Trump administration, which destroyed the previous deal, they at least they sent messages that they would be eager to find some kind of solution. I guess that Iranians overestimated their skills and they underestimated the nature of Trump administration. So they believed that they could continue with this for the same while as they did in 2014, 15, 16. But this time it's different, and the whole atmosphere is different, and Trump is different than Obama. So in this regard, coming back to the suggestion that Iran might reject Russian offer for a military alliance, I doubt that Russia offered military alliance, but in case Russia would do it, I wouldn't be surprised if Iran would try to avoid that kind of direct link.
Well, we do want to talk about Ukraine, but before we do, I want to quickly touch upon South Caucasus, Armenia. After 2020, as you know, there are gray clouds over not just Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, as we say, but Armenia even itself. Like one of the regions, the southern region of Armenia remains constantly under threat, and the Turkish and Azerbaijani plans for a corridor through southern Armenia. Part of their, many say would be part of their Pan-Turanic vision, have been blocked largely because of Iran's tough stance on that issue. At least that's the most popular belief. And Iran actually held military exercises. It repositioned many of its troops to the northern border and has been constantly talking about the red line of Armenia's territorial integrity. So if Israel's attacks weaken or distract Iran, that red line could falter and Armenia could lose Sunik, cutting off Iran from Russia and Europe, leaving Russia isolated in the Persian Gulf, except possibly through Azerbaijan and Turkey, and it would be beholden to those two countries for any access to the Persian Gulf. How concerned is Russia about this possible development and the so-called Zangezur corridor? There are also some analysts who suggest that having this east-west corridor through Armenia, even if at the cost of Armenia's sovereignty, could align with Russia's interests. I don't know if that's how true that is, but I would like your thoughts on that as well.
First of all, I don't think that this part of geopolitical game plays equally a big role in Russian calculation as some people in the Middle East or in the South Caucasus region subscribe to Russia. So it's of course quite an important element, but I just refer to my previous answer about Ukraine and everything connected to that. I'm not sure that at this point the Zangezur corridor and this north-south idea overshadows anything else. Secondly, yes, I think everybody now awaits what will happen with Iran, because you're right that a profound shift in Iranian policy in case of regime change, if it's possible or not, I don't know, might change the whole equation, because yes, Iran did play quite an important role, claiming that the Zangezur corridor and all plans to build roads to the south are a NATO and Israeli plot, and it should be stopped. At the same time, to your direct question whether Russia would be interested in partitioning of Armenia or reducing of Armenia, certainly not. So Russia, we might subscribe any cynical thinking to any politician, of course, but I never witnessed any signs of such thinking in Russia. That's another question that, given the pretty complicated relationship between Russia and Armenia these days, complicated, I mean that they are pretty unclear. Maybe it's better now than it was, say, 3 months ago, after Lavrov's visit and so. But it's still unclear what is going on. The policy of Prime Minister Pashinyan is pretty difficult to understand. Now, by the way, more and more Russian watchers follow this fantastic story in Armenia about struggle between prime minister and the Armenian church, which is, from my point of view, is pretty unique. It's like Europe during Reformation period 500 years ago, something like this. So it's really pretty complicated to decipher what is happening. But I think that relationship now is more stable than it was a couple of months ago or half a year ago. We see, how to call it elegantly, complicated relationship between Russia and Azerbaijan. It was a moment, maybe a year or year and a half ago, when some people expected Russia to just shift from Armenia to Azerbaijan, given the crisis in relationship with Armenia. But life showed that it's not possible, because Azerbaijan has his own agenda and they pursue it very clearly. So at the end of the day, I think that Russia, of course, will try to apply diplomatic and political measures not to allow, Russia cannot afford another big war in Southern Caucasus. Russia is highly disinterested in such scenario. In case it still will happen, that will put Russia in a very complicated position, because on the one hand, again, the current relationship with Armenia cannot be described as an alliance de facto, but de jure is still there. So it will be a significant challenge to Russian diplomacy and Russian decision making.
Right, right. I was going to ask about, there are two elements of the de jure relationship. There is a 1997 Treaty on Mutual Assistance and a separate strategic alliance document. But as you say, if the de facto, the Armenian leadership is continuing to sort of move away from Russia's orbit, I would not personally see how Russia can get involved. But in case things change, I mean, because to be honest, like Pashinyan's popularity is very low in Armenia, especially. I mean, it was already low, but his attacks on the Armenian church, I think, are still like, if not, not just shocking, but also I think will degrade his popularity even more. But if there is a change in leadership in Armenia, and I'm thinking of the best possible circumstance, right? Like a leader that is more aligned with Russia comes to power, or at least one that doesn't have any fantasies about the EU or the West coming to Armenia, but is strongly based on realpolitik. What can Russia do? What is Russia willing to do to stop Armenia from being taken over? Because, as you said, Russia's number one priority is Ukraine.
First of all, probably it's not very fair for me to speculate about hypothetical change, political change in Armenia. It's not my business, it's not Russia's business. If we theoretically imagine next election, which would produce another persons in power, those who will change rhetoric, or those who will change conceptual approaches, one thing is pretty clear, that we see that economic relationship between Russia and Armenia is very strong and is getting stronger. We can find different explanations because of sanctions, because of different factors which are created by outside impetuses, but anyway. And Russia, as I guess a lot of people responsible for economic development in Armenia, are by far not interested to destroy it or to disrupt this kind of relationship. Both sides are interested to develop. Political transformation, in case it will happen, I don't believe that any leader of Armenia in the future would probably like to come back to the format of the past. I mean, this strategic alliance with Russia, which creates the framework for Armenian foreign policy. Not because of Russia, not because of Armenia, but because for me as a national life is moving towards a different format. It's not about firm and permanent alliances. Even NATO, from my point of view, is not will not be forever. It will be change of all kind of relationships, and the flexibility might become the main value for any country. What happens, by the way, now in between Israel and Iran, or many other processes, Ukrainian situation, from my point of view, that confirms this idea that the previous belief in firm, stable alliances, NATO-like alliances, is not the form which will develop in the future. Mm-hmm. So more flexibility, less binding relationship with some red lines which should be preserved by both sides. Commitments not for any case, but for some very, very important cases. I think that might be the good solution. On the Russian side, I don't think that it would be wise for any Russian government or leader in the future to try to demand from neighboring countries to firmly choose either us or somebody else. It's not the trend which we see worldwide. But of course, to find this kind of balanced relationship without provoking any of important partners, it's difficult. I understand. It's very, especially for countries in between, it's very difficult. But unfortunately, the case of Ukraine shows that an attempt in today's world, an attempt to say bye-bye to one important partner and we go completely to another important partner, we see how it ends.
Azerbaijan recently inked an agreement with Pakistan to purchase 40 JF-17 fighters. And many observers think that such a large number for the Azerbaijani Air Force is a little overkill, especially if it's going to be aimed at Armenia. So some analysts think actually it's not against Armenia that they're getting all these things. Azerbaijan is also currently engaged in military exercises jointly with Turkey in Nakhichevan. Now, what do you make of the constant state of military exercise on the part of Turkey and Azerbaijan on the borders of southern Armenia?
No, I think it's quite easily to read and to understand. Azerbaijan and Turkey are interested to keep everybody on alert all the time. It does not mean necessarily that any kind of military action is being prepared, but to demonstrate that this situation, the whole potential conflict there, might include military component, I think that that's a very clear political message. I'm not a big specialist on military exercises, and I cannot identify what particular scenario they play. But so far, I think that that's much more about demonstrating that in case of anything, we are ready to act. And of course, the whole development around Iran, which increases the level of dangers, the general level of dangers in the region, that stimulates that kind of behavior.
In late May, Ukraine launched Operation Spiderweb, striking deep inside Russian territory. Targets included Russia's strategic bombers, part of its nuclear triad, as well as bridges and trains. Some of the attacks caused civilian casualties, and Putin vowed to make Ukraine pay. Afterwards, Russia's rhetoric shifted sharply. Officials began labeling Ukraine's actions as terrorism. Some analysts now warn that this could change the rules of engagement for Russia, with Moscow possibly targeting Ukrainian leaders it holds responsible. Notably, Russian officials stopped short of blaming the US, which is interesting as in the context of what we previously discussed, but this doesn't change the fact that Washington is still Ukraine's main military and possibly financial backer. Instead, figures like Foreign Minister Lavrov pointed the finger at the UK for this operation. And Trump said that, at least I believe Trump said that he was not aware that this was going to happen. So who was really behind these air base attacks, and why does the Kremlin seem to be letting the US off the hook? And also, from there, you can also talk about maybe you said you were just in Istanbul, so there were some negotiations there. Would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
No, in Istanbul, it was very informal talk with a couple of American experts. It's not that frequent case nowadays, so it was just interesting to exchange some views about what is happening, but this is not the level of decision making. As for Spiderweb operation, of course, no one knows who was exactly behind this. UK is our favorite enemy, so this is an old Russian tradition to see UK behind any hostile geopolitical or intelligence moves. Partially it's based on history, because starting from 19th century, Russian and British empires were biggest enemies. This so-called Great Game in around Central Asia and partially Caucasus, and this British suspiciousness about Russian plans towards India, which were non-existing. Anyway, this is an old tradition, and I cannot exclude that consultants or instructors or whoever from the UK or from the US participated in that. Having said that, I think we should not underestimate the direct enemy. Ukraine, it might be bad for us, but Ukraine demonstrated that they have quite a good capacity to organize pretty sophisticated acts of sabotage and terrorism. So in this regard, of course, what happened with these strategic bombers, that should be a very much wake-up call for people in Russia who are in charge of defending military facilities, such an important military facilities. I hope that all conclusions will be made. As you mentioned, the rhetoric which changed, yes, it changed, but to be frank, we heard it before as well, because it's not the first time when Ukraine per se, or Ukraine with support of somebody, organized very big actions. Last year's invasion in the Kursk region was a very big deal here. And each time people expected to see some spiraling escalation from the Russian side. Actually, what we know about Mr. Putin's political style, and if I may call it political culture, strategic culture, he is not in a hurry to respond. It's absolutely not his style. He is extremely patient. He prefers to wait and see, and then to respond in a way which he believes is relevant. So it means that I guess that the real response is still to come. But at the same time, I don't expect that the nature of this conflict will change because of what Ukrainians did, despite the fact that, of course, it was a very, very exceptional move to attack 5 of sites for Russian strategic bombers connected to the nuclear arms. That's something. But the difference between a Russian tactic and Ukrainian tactic. Ukrainians love to make very big moves and promote it very widely to show how successful they are. Experience from 3.5 years of war rather shows that neither of those moves changed the logic of the fight. It was a very, very big PR show, but not profound shift in military activities. On the Russian side, Russia is not that skillful or avoids to make a big show out of successes, but Russia step by step continues to push Ukrainians further and further into their territory. And I guess that this is the main stake on the side of President Putin. He believes that at the end of the day, whatever they do and whatever damage they will be able to deliver to Russian particular branches, at the end of the day, in this attrition war, Russia will win. And of course, the fact that United States was not blamed, I don't know. On the one side, probably they were not, the Americans were not involved. Why not? Again, as I said, I trust that Ukrainians can do something themselves. Secondly, of course, it was not in the interest of President Trump because I wouldn't say he is very much on the Russian side in this conflict, but his idea is to get rid of it. And of course, the more such moves, the more such actions, the less probability of that it will end up soon. So in this regard, what Trump said immediately after this attack, on the one hand, he was impressed by the technical level. On the other hand, he said it was a very, very dangerous move because now Russians has right to dismiss everything and to destroy everything. So at the end of, to wrap up this answer, I don't think that the nature of the conflict will be changed because of that.
Mr. Lukyanov, in light of your conversations in Istanbul with American colleagues and all of the demonstrations and protests you have watched, including the military parade, the so-called military parade in Washington, do you have any impressions you want to share of what you think maybe Americans are experiencing under Trump after, what is it, like 150 days or whatever?
It was not that long conversation. We couldn't cover everything. But those colleagues with whom we discussed, they are rather on the side of Trump. At least they support his agenda with disengaging from endless wars and be back to American domestic needs.
You're referring to the America First policy?
America First policy, not the most radical part of it, but experts from think tanks which support this idea. And what I got from this conversation, they were, by the way, all of them were pretty unhappy about what is happening between Iran and Israel. Not because they support Iran, but because they believe that it might bring Trump back to this agenda, and Trump will have no chance but to drag into the conflict on the Israeli side, which would undermine a lot of his concept that the United States basically does need to be there, and that was their concern. But otherwise, I think these people around Trump, they still believe that despite some setbacks, he will be able to move forward on the most principal things like America First ideas.
Well, I can tell you that a number of social media postings that I've seen were deeply disappointed with the parade in Washington, D.C., because they said, well, we've seen parades in Moscow, and this was nothing like that. So I guess Russians know how to do military parades a little bit better than the Americans.
That's correct. That's correct. But Trump, that was just his first parade. Maybe next 10 parades will be much better.
Yeah, that was a
Maybe
that was a birthday
he'll
parade.
invite some consultants from Russia or North Korea to arrange the parades better.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Excellent advice. Yeah.
All right.
Next year he will turn 80. That should be a real parade.
There we go. Well, of course, next year it's 250th anniversary of birthday of the country. So,
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
so that'll be a big one. Mr. Lukyanov, thank you for sharing your insights with us. I appreciate the time you're spending here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will talk soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, that was our show today. The episode was recorded on June 15, 2025. Happy Father's Day to all the listening fathers of our show. We've been talking with Mr. Fyodor Lukyanov, who is the chairman of the Council on Foreign and Defense Policy. This is a Russian think tank providing expertise on the foreign policy field. He is also editor-in-chief of Russia and Global Affairs, a platform for publication in English and Russian of research in political science and international relations. Mr. Lukyanov is also the director of research at the Valdai Discussion Club.
Before we say goodbye, I have one last request from you all. Hundreds of you listen to us on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're one of them, please take a moment to make sure that you're subscribed to the show. And if you're not, consider downloading those apps and subscribing to us as a gesture of help. Subscribing helps push our episodes to more people and it allows us to grow on those platforms, which we really, really, really want to do. And if you're using Apple Podcasts, whether on your iPhone, iPad, or Mac, you can also help by leaving a rating and writing a short review for us. It doesn't have to be long. Just a few words can go a long way in helping new listeners find us. The same for Spotify. There's a way to leave reviews on Spotify as well. I think they're like you click on the three dots next to the show, then tap rate show, and then you can give us a quick rating. We really, really appreciate your support, and please help us keep the show going and growing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Asbet Bedrosyan in Los Angeles.
And I'm Hovik Manucharyan.
Still in Los Angeles.
Almost. I have 2 weeks left, and I'm dying to get back to Armenia. But yes, that is my situation right now.
It's always fun to schedule when we are 12 hours apart or 11 hours apart. Please find us on social media and follow us everywhere you get your Armenian news. All of our links are in the show notes. And also, I just want to mention that very interesting paper from Brookings Institute that Hovik mentioned in the show, we're going to put the link in the show as well. It's a little bit shocking when you go through that document. It's actually 170 pages, but if you just look at the chapters, it almost looks like a blow-by-blow of what is going on today in international affairs, Israel and Iran, etc., etc. Quite shocking.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.